Welcome. It's so great to have you here for another section of the LRT, the Loving Relationships Training with Sondra Ray. I hope you've been enjoying these segments, and they're tidbits of wisdom from Sondra Ray, her many years of teaching the Loving Relationships Training around the world. I look forward to hearing about this subject myself from Sondra Ray, so I hope you will too, and thank you for being here, and let's get on with it.
Hi everyone, welcome to section 13 of these videos. I'm going to talk about the ingredients for the new paradigm, the paradigm of joy. And first of all, I'd like to say I'm really happy to be with you today, and this part is really fun to talk about. Even though I start out with the first ingredient, sacredness, people don't think sacredness is any fun. It really is, because you can play this game of ascending the ladder of holiness. What you do is you ask yourselves every day, or for sure once a week, are we ascending the ladder of holiness or are we descending the ladder of holiness? And you know when you're descending the ladder of holiness because you're not having any fun, you're not feeling good, things aren't working, you might be mad, you might be sick, you might be in pain, and that can tell you you're descending the ladder of holiness. So when you're ascending the ladder of holiness, you're going to be feeling good, things are working out, you're going to have more joy, you're going to have more fun, and you look forward to whatever's happening each day. So it's really good game to play. Are we ascending the ladder of holiness or are we descending? The second ingredient is to have an absolute divine friendship. Now, it's been proven that good marriages are based on friendship. So, is your mate your best friend? Your mate should be your best friend. And you should be as open and defenseless with your mate as you are with your best friend. That means you should be able to say anything. Now, we had this client, and she said that she could say anything to her friends, but when she got in an intimate relationship, she froze up and she couldn't say what she really felt. And that was sad. And I told her, if you make your mate your friend, you'll be able to say anything to them. But she had her mate in a different category. And every time she was with her mate, she would freeze up and not tell the truth and not say what she really wanted to say. The way she fixed it is, I told her, pretend your mate is your best friend and then make him your best friend. She was really happy to identify that pattern. It really changed her life. The next ingredient in the new paradigm that's important is innocence. Now, you have to have innocence like a child, because if you have guilt, you're not going to have any fun and you're not going to have any joy. So then you're going to punish yourself some way, maybe in your body or maybe in your relationships. You might unconsciously mess up your relationship if you have guilt. Or you might ruin your career if you have guilt. Or you might ruin your body if you have guilt. So in order to have a really joyous new paradigm relationship, you both have to be in your innocence, and you have to have a way of clearing your guilt. And one way of clearing your guilt is you write down everything you're guilty about, and then you breathe it out in a liberation breathing session. That's the best way I know of. After you make this list of everything you're guilty about, you'll have a bunch of negative thoughts. So what you need to do is change each one of those to the opposite, which is an affirmation. And then read those affirmations and write them over and over to eradicate this guilt, because guilt will be due to negative thoughts. So you look them over and you change each one to the opposite in the form of an affirmation. And then you need to learn these affirmations, read them often and write them and incorporate them in your life. The next quality for a new paradigm relationship is purity. So what I mean by that is having no anger, no overt anger, no covert anger, no suppressed anger, and not even any irritation. The Course in Miracles says under every irritation is a veil of hate. So you need to give up all those things. A great being will go to any extent to remove his anger. And it's a sign of greatness to drop something once you know you have it. A lot of people are afraid to give up anger. So they have to find out what their fear is. My fear of giving up anger is, and you write it down. So you might have a fear if you give up your anger, nobody will hear you. You might have a fear if you give up your anger, you'll be weak. And you might have a fear if you give up your anger, then people will push you around. So these things have to be worked out and forgiven. The truth is, anger is a defense, and defenses attract attack. So if you keep your anger, you're going to attract more attack. Well, some people say, yeah, but then I'll be losing all my power. No, the truth is, peace is power. Our teacher Amaji says that anger makes you weak in every cell of your body. So wouldn't you like to be free of anger and be in your true power? Anger is very destructive. It destroys your relationship. It destroys your body. If you keep your anger, eventually you'll have some major illness. Eventually it could lead to strokes even. It's not worth it. Number 5, I mentioned before, I need to mention again, is decide to have a conflict-free relationship. You want to nurture your relationship like a garden. When you have a garden, you have to pull up the weeds or the weeds will choke the plants. So my parents had a wonderful agreement. They had an agreement to clean up their relationship every night. So they never carried any upset to the next day. I think this is a really important agreement. And they also had an agreement to never raise their voice in the presence of us children. So they never did. And this was wonderful for me growing up. I never heard them argue. If they had a discussion, they did it behind closed doors, and they never exposed this heavy energy onto us kids. And I'm very grateful for that. Oh, my mother used to tell me that in the Bible it says, never let the sun set on your anger, Sandra. Number 6 is spiritual purification has to be a way of life. It's not like joining a tennis club and you play tennis maybe once a month. One should have daily practices. Marcus and I always do spiritual practices in the morning after we get up. We do a 5-point prayer process. Number 1, we read something from the text in the Course in Miracles. Number 2, we state what we want to be forgiven for out loud. Number 3, we state what we're grateful for that day. Number 4, we state what our petition is, what we're asking for. And number 5 is the closing, where we read a Course in Miracles lesson. This is a beautiful practice that we recommend. And then we chant Babaji's Arti every morning. I also do prayers of Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian spiritual practice for forgiveness. So one should have some kind of spiritual practice, such as what I'm suggesting. And it makes your day go so much better, and it brings a lot of joy to your relationship. Number 7, we've touched on a little bit before, it's having a mission together. So, Babaji, our teacher, says, work is worship, idleness is death. I really like that idea that work is worship. That means when you go to work, you really feel like you're giving yourself to people, you're helping people, you are like a minister. And who's your ministry? Your ministry is whoever comes to you during the day. Your ministry is also your address book, your email list, etc. So what do you do in this ministry? You help people raise their consciousness. You tell them about what books that are available that are holy. You tell them about seminars that are good. You help them change their negative thoughts to positive thoughts, and so on. And then you enjoy your work. Doesn't matter if you have a flower shop or a hardware store or whatever. It's still your worship. When you go to work and you see it as worship, you won't feel run down or tired. You will enjoy going to work when you make your work your worship. And one of my friends says we need to have vocational arousal. I like that. It's like you have to be turned on to your job. You have to feel excited about it, and that really makes it fun. Number 8 is gratitude. This is really important, to have an attitude of gratitude. It changes everything when you are grateful. You don't want to say, well, I'll be grateful when I get a car, or I'll be grateful when I get the right boyfriend, or I'll be grateful when I'm healed, or I'll be grateful when I get the right house. No, you want to be grateful for everything that's unfolding in front of you now. And the best book to read about this is called Magic. Appreciation is the highest frequency. I want to tell you a story about that. I was assigned to go to Japan, and I had a lot of resistance because I knew I had past life karma in Japan, but I had to go. So I went to Japan, and the first thing that happened, there was a big earthquake. Well, I got through that. Then I met a healer, and he told me a wonderful story. He told me about a client that he had that had a fatal disease. And this client did not want to go to a doctor, did not want to go to a hospital. I think he had cancer of the lungs, and he wasn't even a smoker. And I think the cancer was even metastasizing. So what he did is he stood before his altar every morning and every evening, and he said the following: "Oh God, I appreciate my lungs so much. They have served me so well." He said that every morning and every evening, and he really meant it. And he totally healed himself, all by himself, without going to a doctor. So don't ever forget this story. Appreciation is the highest frequency. Also, you might try this. Somebody that you like, that's really important to you, call them up or write them and say, "I'm really grateful that you exist." Number 9 is respect. When you lose respect for your mate, then you're really in big trouble. So you want to make sure you can respect each other at all times. Respect is really important. Now, how would you treat an honored guest who came to your house? You would treat them with immense respect. You wouldn't be criticizing them at all. So, what about treating your mate like that? What about treating your mate like an honored guest? This is an assignment I'd like to give you. And it really feels good when you do that, and it certainly feels good for your mate. Treat your mate like an honored guest. And you know, you would never criticize an honored guest. By the way, criticism kills relationships, so give it up. When I talk about an honored guest, I'm talking about someone like the Dalai Lama. How would you treat the Dalai Lama if the Dalai Lama came to your house? Now, what if you treated your mate like that? I think you can see the results would be phenomenal. I just want to review the definition of an unholy relationship and a holy relationship. An unholy relationship is where you think you're lacking something and you need somebody else to fill you up. So you find a mate and then you take what you think you don't have from them and you rip them off and then you leave. That's an unholy relationship. A holy relationship is where you know that you are whole and complete and you don't need someone else to feel complete. Then you find someone else who is whole and complete. They don't need you either. And then you come together and you share the light with the world. That is what a holy relationship is, and these definitions came right out of the Course in Miracles. And then you come together for the evolution of your souls. Number 11 is the nature of this kind of relationship is continuously transforming. Now, there's some people that say, don't rock the boat, don't change. I can't stand it if you change. I am used to you the way you are. So people are kind of stuck in what's familiar, and change can be threatening. But think of it this way, change is exciting, and life is about change. Life is about movement, and life is about growth. So your relationship should be about movement, and your relationship should be about growth. So the idea that I'm trying to get across to you is continuously transforming relationship is fun and exciting. And you want to help your mate transform, and they want to help you transform. And you know, there's always something higher. So you keep going up the scale and you get higher and higher together. Number 12, the next ingredient is clarity. So what do I mean by clarity? A clear person is liberated from the past. They're not dragging a lot of baggage with them. They're not negative. They're not angry. But they're also clear where they're at. That doesn't mean they don't have things coming up. They might have something coming up, but they're clear that they need to do something about it. For example, I might say to Marcus, well, I'm clear today that I'm confused about something and I need to have a session. So I'm clear that I'm confused, I'm clear I need a session, and I want to do something about this confusion. That's clarity. Clarity doesn't mean you're perfect all the time. It means you know where you're at and you know what you have to do about it. So, a humble person recognizes his errors, admits them, and does something about them. Don't forget that. A humble person recognizes his errors, admits them, and does something about them. A lot of people out there aren't even recognizing their errors. They're not clear on what their errors are. And then if they are, they're not doing anything about it. So it's really important you recognize your errors and that you admit them and you do something about them. And that's clarity. People love to stay with people who are clear. They love to be around people who are clear because it's fun. And if you're around people who aren't clear, they might drag you down. You want to be careful and not match energies with somebody who's very unclear. If you match energies, then you're going to go down to their level. You want to be clear and help people go up to your level. Number 13 is called conflict resolution. You have to know how to solve conflicts and not be arguing all the time. So this is really important section. All right, so I'm going to teach you a simple game to play to solve conflicts. Usually people want to be right. So the first thing you have to do is both of you have to give up the need to be right. That's step number 1. Both of you have to be willing to give up your so-called position. Maybe there's a much higher thought than your position or your mate's position. So you give up your position and then you look for the solution. What I'm talking about is the importance of going for solution. A lot of people are having the same argument they've had for years, over and over, and they never get the solution. So the first step then is you decide, both of you decide, that you're going to go for a solution. Okay, how do you find the solution? The solution is going to be the highest thought you can think of, and either one of you could get it. So the highest thought is the most positive thought you could think of, the most loving, the most productive, and it feels the best in your body, okay? So in some cases, Marcus might channel the highest thought of any solution. In some cases, Marcus might channel the highest thought, and I'd gladly go up to his thought, because I want the highest thought. If I happen to channel the highest thought, he gladly goes up to my thought, because he wants the highest thought. We don't care who gets the highest thought. In fact, even your child could channel the highest thought. So then when the thought is on the floor, the highest thought is on the floor, you drop all other issues and you go for that one. And it has to be something that you both like. The answer will be something you both like and it solves the problem. And then you adapt that thought to the solution. Now I'm going to give you an example of a true story. There was a case in Florida at the space station where the scientists were arguing about a certain thing about putting up the satellite. And it's very expensive, you know, to delay all this. And nobody could agree. None of the scientists could agree. And they were arguing. So one scientist stood up and he said, "This is not working. I'm calling a break." Well, that was the highest thought at the time. So he called a break and everybody took a break. He walked 4 blocks down to the local school and he went into a classroom of 5th graders. And he obviously understood that children can channel high thoughts, by the way. So he presented the problem to these 5th graders and he said, "Do any of you kids know the answer?" And one kid raised his hand and he said, "Yeah, I know." And he just channeled the highest thought. And the scientist said, "That's it." And he went back to the space station and he told the other scientists, and they all agreed that was highest thought, and they all got off it. And so that was the solution. So never underestimate the highest thought could be coming from anywhere, even your children. In summary, I would review these points that I've made and pick the ones that work for you. Personally, I found that these all work for me, and I certainly do hope they work for you. And if you practice them, you're going to get really good results. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really look forward to being with you again, and we're going to carry on more with information on the new paradigm next time.